Oh, I want to say one thing. I know there's probably Mitsubishi people out there, but F Mitsubishis. I bought a Mitsubishi TV, and that it still sucks.
We are back in the shop today. We have the EVO Killer. Welcome to VTEC Academy. You're about to get schooled. Right now, it's not much of a killer.
Yeah, no, it's killing us.
It's killing us. So we got a bunch of stuff we need to do this to get it ready to be fast. All right, let's give it a try. See if it fires up. All right, we have a check engine light, see what that is. Well, it's not telling me what my arrow code is, but the list includes E85 sensor, easy enough. It needs to get tuned because obviously there's something up with the tune right now. Also, we need to get the electronic power steering working. We wired it, I thought, correctly, but it's not working. It's a to drive. So we need to get that going. We need to reassemble the interior. Oh, VSS to CSS. This particular transmission uses a countershaft speed sensor. This particular car wants to see a vehicle speed sensor, the much lower pulsing. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Show you how we wired it. I'm going to show you how we get the computer to accept the fast signal and how to output a slow signal for our dash. So that's going to be a biggie for this whole thing. And then let's see, intake. We need to build a new intake. This one's kind of lame. It's tiny. We've got kind of limited room. We mounted our battery down here, and so we can't really do a cold air intake, but I don't think that's totally necessary. I mean, we still get plenty of horsepower even with a warm air intake, but we're going to need to make something that's at least big enough to take advantage of this larger throttle body.
Yeah.
All right, so you want to start on the EPS, and I'll start on the E85?
Cool.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go right to the right of the VIN. Probably frown on me drilling a hole in the VIN.
We did that on our other EP, or I mean on our other ES.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to leave this on because that's going to stabilize it, so to speak. And then I'm going to drill another hole above it that I'll actually put a bolt in to hold it down.
What? I can't hear. Huh? Now I have to unwind it again. God damn it. Time. There we go. Oh, this drill bit won't fit in there. It's so touchy. I could stop hitting the trigger. Yeah, that's nice.
Use a, Scott, use a step drill.
The boss is always right. Oh my God. Jeez. Oh, I like those way better than the aluminum ones. That turned out nice. Just had to slot that hole a little bit. It's definitely off a little. Hey, look at that.
Hey.
Finally did something right, huh?
First time, long time.
Then that cool little thing will go and clip on there, but I'm not going to clip that on there because I'm afraid of it breaking. Then we can flex our fuel. Then we can flex on them EVOs. I say EVO Killer, but it's got to be EVO Hunter first because they're hard to find.
Oh, for some reason, even though they're not that old, they're not on the road anymore.
Yeah. They all got wrecked because people thought they could drive. Or they just couldn't afford to keep them on the road, so.
Or they blew the engines and then just scrapped them.
They're all gone. Okay, put this back with.
It's no K series.
No. You have those cool screw-on. This is a bigger tube. It's whatever these size tubes are.
Let's go look at what I have.
But you could put 2 of those on there using 90. I think we could just cut that hose.
No, I should
put a
have some.
90 and a-
Yeah, I put a 90 in a straight.
And a straight.
But we should have the correct connections that go with this fuel line. So let me take a look.
Whoa.
Nice.
Can you play the pan flute?
Just that note. I was thinking that was going to be a flow restriction, but I guess that just has a sensor. The fuel just simply passes through.
It has like an electrical sensor in order to determine what the makeup of alcohol is.
Nice. So it's literally just sensing alcohol.
Correct.
Okay. And obviously your mix, if you put pure in or half a tank of 91 with that, it'll adjust accordingly. Thanks to the Honda data.
Yeah, it gives it a voltage signal back, and then based on the voltage signal, it.
It's like a breathalyzer for your car.
It's like
Yeah.
right. It's like a breathalyzer for your car.
Not to start it, Scott.
Checking for life. I'm checking for voltage. I was just checking the connections on the EPS unit. I'm breaking the flashlight. And now I'm gonna check for power at the rack. Maybe there's supposed to be 12 volts there. Oh my goodness, jeez Louises. Jeez. Got it.
What's the antenna, plan of attack here?
So the manual's at home, so we're just going to take a stab at it. I think what's happened is when we rebuilt the connector that went from this fuse box to that, the 2 wires got swapped down there at the plug, power and ground. So we're going to try and switch them, and hopefully it doesn't burn up. Just so you know, I wouldn't do that if it wasn't for the fact that I have another EPS unit. So that's why I'm, I would like to keep both of them though.
Got it. Good. It went to the ground.
I heard it, so you're golden.
Now,
Did it pop our fuse?
no, I had to pop the little lock out of the back, but
Oh.
now I'm trying to figure out how the heck to get that pin out.
You want to mark the side you want to put the red one on, or do you trust yourself?
I trust myself.
All right. Because I don't
Yeah,
trust
because
you.
I'm going to match the red with the red.
Yep. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. In hopes that they just both go right in. Yeah. Red to red. It'd be nice to have an EP just to look at. Oh, let's start it and see if there's...
Burn up the fuse.
Here's for hoping. I'm gonna go ahead and say no. I think it's easier to turn when it's off. Okay, that didn't work.
We're going to have to put it off until we get the manual. Never mind.
Because I know there's a bunch of wires that I feel are probably all those wires that are just down there in a bundle.
They're not connected to anything?
Yeah, but I don't think they were connected on the other car. But there was probably a speed input, or we bypassed
Yeah, there's
that?
a VSS input. There's a engine speed pulse input. There's a, which tells the thing your engine's on. That's what tells the computer the engine's on. Then there is a VSS, which gives you the feedback.
Yeah, that way
right.
it can
And then
regulate.
there should be, and then this should be talking to the computer, because the computer controls the motor with those wires. So if those wires aren't connected to anything, there's a problem. So they've got to be
Could
connected to
very
something.
well be that.
Yeah. All right, so we found out the wiring was correct. First off, the wire that comes from that fuse box, we made it red for whatever reason. Should have been white blue, probably because I didn't have a big enough gauge wire. And it goes to green. So, and then the red wire goes back to the main computer. So anyway, let's swap it back. Green to red and red to black. Just like it should be.
In the comments below, tell me what I did wrong.
How's this going, Brian?
Horrible. What am I hooked on?
Phonics.
This bundle of joy right here. Yeah, the wires they were talking about. I'm just amazed that they weren't working on the, they weren't connected on the black and blue car, but anyway. Let me show you what we're working on. See that bundle of wires right there? That is what we need to connect in order to get everything working. So we're going to make a little game plan to try to connect all those and get them going. So let me show you what we're talking about here. This is our EPS wiring, and this is our 7 wires that we got to worry about. So I've made a little legend on where each one of them wants to go. So I'm going to make a connector that has each wire terminated where it needs to go here, and then I'll crimp on terminals on our other set of wires that are underneath the dash and connect it all up. Looks like it's there. All right, we are going back and forth about what we're going to do with this car. This car, E85, and it's got a counter chassis speed sensor. So there's 2 things that need to happen. 3 things that need to happen. 3 things that need to happen. I feel like I'm Monty Python skit. Count to 3. Do not count to 2 unless the next number is 3. Do not count to 4. Anyway, 3 things. One of them is K-Pro V4. We've got that because it has the ethanol sensor input, which is right there. All right. That's one thing. Number 2 is we need to output a speed signal. On the manual, this is an automatic ECU. On the manual ECU, it's pretty easy. It outputs, I believe it's B11. Well, more on that as if it works. All right. But basically what happens is in the software, you then make some adjustments to it, asking it to see that it's getting a counter chassis speed sensor signal, and then you give it a percentage to reduce it, and then you do an output on B11 back to your dash so your dash works properly. Okay, that's the second thing you need to do. So 1's V4, 2 is make sure that that's set up, and then we're going to have to run a pin from B11 to our VSS. And then obviously we need to run a wire into the car for our ethanol sensor. So our ethanol sensor sits here. It just so happens this used to be our power steering pressure switch, which we're no longer using. And this wire right here goes back to the ECU. And we pulled it out of the ECU because it's not being used. We're using an EPS wire. So we have that wire sitting down there by the ECU. So I think what we're going to do is we are going to take that wire, put it on its own connector, plug it in here, and then connect our ethanol wire to whichever wire we decide we want to use here. So we're just going to solder a little, we're going to solder a wire here, bring it over, and have it slide on. We could use our...
And the C-pin seems to work well.
Yeah.
I didn't push it all the way on, but I figured it.
You know, if you clip this and straighten it, we might be able to put an E-pin on both ends.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
If we can get to just the top.
Yeah, and that means we could, you know, service it if we ever needed to, without, you know, unsoldering something. Makes pretty good contact. I think we're good. I think that's what we're going to do. Okay, yesterday Scott mounted our E85 sensor. Our fuel line used to go just straight like that, so basically I cut it in the center and I put a new fitting on it. This is a 3/8 inch quick disconnect. I got it from Red Horse. I actually had it on some ordered online, but they haven't made it here today, so I just went down and paid 2.5 times as much money to buy these rather than get them online. Then over on this side, put a straight fitting, a right angle fitting, and another 3/8 quick disconnect to -6. And then put our fuel hoses back in. Now, next is our wiring. But basically, this large 3/8 inch fuel fitting shouldn't restrict our fuel flow for our superchargers. We should be fine on that. Next, what I'm going to do is utilize some wiring that's existing. I need 3 wires going to this. I need a ground. It just so happens on our power steering pressure sensor, we have a ground right there. We have a signal. Of course, that goes back to our ECU, which is what we need it to do. And I just need a power. Well, I'm going to get my power from down here. This wiring harness is set up for both countershaft speed sensor and vehicle speed sensor. This is our VSS. There's a black yellow wire in here, which is 12 volts with the ignition turned on. So I'm going to get my power from there, bring it up to our connector, put it in, and we'll be wired for the E85 sensor to work properly. All right, Scott was down here in the rat's nest doing wiring. Basically, I'd made this chart yesterday in order to do it. We didn't have all the exact colors, so we used colors close to it, but we're good. The only error I found was this one right here. This yellow tap it into C101 number 2, which happens to be fuse number 10, which is power for backup lights, which is what's supposed to be used for to turn our EPS on, for ignition signal for the EPS. I remembered that the yellow wire wasn't in C101. Normally, if this was a manual car, that yellow wire would have been there, but this was originally an automatic car, so that was not there. So what we had to do was we had to tap into the relay. These are the relays. This right here is the wire for the that comes from fuse 10 for the backup lights. So we tapped into that wire instead of the C101 plug. A little bit of a change, but otherwise pretty much the same. The only thing he has not done, and I don't really care, is he hasn't tapped into our 2 data link connections. The reason I don't care about that is because I don't care if the data link can read errors with the EPS right now. If I ever have a problem with the EPS, I'll connect it at that particular time. But right now, don't care. I just noticed another error we're going to have to change. Let me see if I can go back and figure out what it was. Oh, the other thing we haven't wired is our EPS light. There's a signal light typically that tells you whether or not your EPS is working properly. There's no light for that on this dash. On the last car, I wired it into the neutral light on the neutral position switch, since this is was originally an automatic car. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this one. I might add a different light, like put it over off to the left, or I might even put a EP3 dash in here, which I think might be kind of cool. But I'll figure that out as you know, at some point later on. All right, what was the other thing I figured out? Oh, that's what it is. This wire right here is our speed. The blue-white wire tells the EPS how fast we're going. I forgot we have a countershaft speed sensor, which means that the car thinks it's going way fast. So what we're going to have to do is, on the other side of this plug, we're going to have to disconnect with what is getting fed to it right now, which is the vehicle speed from the countershaft speed sensor, and we'll have to connect it to B11, which is what's going to output our speed for our downscaled speed. So we'll need to make sure we do that. Otherwise, EPS is going to think we're doing 800 miles an hour, which we won't be.
If an Evolution's doing 800.
Yeah, true. then I'll have to go 800, 850. Had this car been using an RSX transmission or an EP3 transmission with a vehicle speed sensor, that is the correct place to put that. So we'll have to make a change there to make sure the EPS knows exactly how fast the car is going. I think this tricky cool thing. Makes my life easier. It's so convenient of Honda to have a ground here and a signal wire that went back to the computer. Thank you, Honda. No, I dumped it all out of my hand when I was playing with it earlier. Alrighty. Not pretty, but when you lean it over like that, you just want to get it over with as quickly as you can. This is where the fuel is. Next to the fuel line. Delicate. It's like operation. Sweet.
He matches the board.
Pretty slick, man.
You do vibration testing to make sure it doesn't slide off.
Looks good. Wait.
Yeah. Nope. Good, yeah.
We're good.
Even with secondary vibrations.
Yeah.
We can modify your computer for $300 just like this. No,
Yeah. What I did was I took a Civic SI program with a Jackson Racing supercharger, and I used that as the base tune. Then I came in here and I adjusted the fuel injectors from 440s to 650s. Then I went to the map sensor and did stock replacement. And it's a K-tuned, but which is a 4-bar. So I just selected the Honda OmniPower 4-bar, so I assume it was the same. Miscellaneous, what we got here? Immobilizer is not enabled, so that way it doesn't try to, that way it'll start. Speed sensor. I do not have a normal speed sensor. The problem is on the Civic Si tunes, there's no way for me to choose alternate speed input. So I'm going to use, for the moment, no speed sensor, provide constant signal. That's going to say like it's always running at 40 miles an hour. And that way it goes into VTEC. When we go to get it tuned, at that particular point, what we'll do is we will start off with a base program that's an RSX-based program, because the RSX-based programs will actually allow us to go into this particular thing and say that we've got a countershaft-driven speed sensor. From there, we'll be able to make our compensation for the speed and everything. But unfortunately, there's no, in the stock tunes that were for the K20, with the bad VTEC, let's say, 2-lobe VTEC instead of 3-lobe VTEC, yeah, we don't have that option. So for right now, just to fire it up, this is what we're going to use. So I'm actually going to save this calibration, save as. Let's go ahead and run it over here, ESK24 supercharge. Even though that's already a calibration, we're just going to save it like that, and then we're going to upload it into our program. Now we should be able to fire it up and it should run. It's funny, we also can't, I don't believe we can use the E85 starting with that tune either, so we'll have to look at that also. Let's give it a try. We have two error codes. We have a error code for a heated oxygen sensor circuit malfunction, and we have one for the secondary. I forgot to turn that one off, so let's turn that one off.
I mean, really, it's like one.
Yeah, well, yeah, true. Save. Upload. All right, let's try it again. Question is it getting too much fuel or not enough fuel?
Oh.
Everything else looks okay. All right. Still have a O2 sensor problem.
What was that?
Well, we'll still have an O2 sensor problem. I'll have to see what's up with that. I'm going to fire it up again. It's telling me that the air fuel ratio sensor heater is a problem. So I'm going to look at where that issue is.
I think they have just enough. I'm going to drill and tap this with 1/8 inch MPT so we can put a fuel gauge at the end of our fuel rail, just to make sure that we have fuel pressure. Danger, danger. Keep your hands inside the ride at all times. Ooh, it seems like there's a lot of material there. Definitely something not on center, but whatever. It started. It just needs more.
Good.
I think that'll be great. Chips gone. I didn't even smash it with the vise.
All right.
Max power.
Let's see what kind of fuel pressure we have.
Oh, slowly, it's coming up, kinda. You got almost to 5 pounds or 10 pounds.
I'm going to turn it over.
Cool. Yeah, no.
No
It's
fuel
barely
pressure?
going to 10 pounds before you crank it. Once you crank it, it just and it's just like barely coming up. And then
Remember
just
how
going
you
up.
said you couldn't hear the fuel pump? Now we know why.
Those aren't like a B series or whatever, a
No.
90s car where it's got that. Sometimes you lose that little hose, that leader hose, so you're losing pressure. But
No, that's not like that. On
that's
this.
not like that.
And we'd be able to smell gas back there if
It cracked the
it
housing.
cracked
or
the
whatever.
housing. And I kind of smell gas, but I think it's because we had this open. So we have no fuel pressure. We've got no fuel pressure. That's why it fired up and ran great for like 10 minutes that one day. That's when it was braking. Because I remember, because I took it down for a rip and I thought, oh, that's pretty good. I came around the other way and it was like, bah, you know, like lean misfire. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. And then I had a check engine light too.
How did I get it? Because when I drove it in here, I mean, it was just idle. That's all. I could
That's
not
all it
give
could
it
do?
any gas.
Yeah, well, it's gotten worse now. It won't even idle. So, all right. So we got to pull
Either
the
that
fuel tank.
Internal regulator's gone bad, or more than likely, it's just the pump is.
Yeah, the pump's
Or
weak
it could
ass.
be gummed up just from us putting fresh fuel in it and it
That's
clean.
possible too. So what we can do is we'll pull the fuel pump tomorrow and see what's going
what
on.
It looks like, yeah.
Yeah.
Because
All
these
right.
are plastic tanks. I don't feel the tank gets as corroded and yucky
No.
as
Does not.
a
Doesn't
steel
get.
tank.
Does not get like that. But you know, we can look at the where it takes the fuel in and see if it's all clogged there. So
Interesting.
I'm not happy.
I just want to know if the power steering works.
Yeah. We're going to pull the fuel pump on the car. So we made this nifty little tool for doing that. It's got this giant nut that looks like this on it. So we made a tool that slides down nicely, grab the edges, and rip it out of there like it's nobody's business.
Yeah.
All right. So you turned on the fuel or the ignition while you had the cover off the fuel pump. You said you saw just fuel kind of oozing out, and you can't even hear the fuel pump, can you?
You can't hear it.
Yeah.
I can't hear it.
Huh? Yeah, I can't either. So anyway, so let's rip it out of there, and we'll show you how this works.
It's towards the driver to push on it. But, oh, you got it.
Good. Yep.
It's there.
It's on.
Nice.
This is actually like the reservoir that recirculates, where the fuel recirculates into it. And then there's the level. All right. They sell these two ways. They sell these as a complete kit. By the way, that's the fuel pressure regulator on this. This is what actually regulates the pressure. So if you wanted to change the fuel pressure, you would need to do something with that, because these are internally regulated. It's called a dead end system. The fuel pump sits down in here. Electrical, of course, is up here. These things, you can buy just the top with all this stuff on it and no cracks. Yeah. Or you can buy the whole unit from Honda. I think it's $250 or something like that. That might be even with the discount. You can actually replace just the fuel pump if you want to with a higher volume fuel pump, but obviously this, I would have to buy a new top regardless. So the tops are cheap. Sometimes that's a problem. Sometimes fuel pump, I think it's actually our fuel pump, because you can't hear it. I can't hear it when it turns on. Normally you can hear the pump whirring even if it's under fuel. So it's not really doing that. So what we're going to do is run down the salvage yard, rip one of these out.
How the heck do you change the hoses on
It's like shrink tubed on there.
So when you get a new
So when you get a new one, it's here. It has this hose and this hose down here.
okay.
So you have to connect those on.
Cool, cool.
All right. All right, we took a quick trip to the yard and dug up this fuel pump. It's in actually really good shape. It looks like it's aftermarket, but the car was running, crashed, so I'm assuming that this is going to be good. So we're going to slap it in our car and then try to get everything running. We'll see how good it is.
How's that fuel look?
It's fuel colored. So it's probably not horrible. Okay, so I just went over to the other fuel pump. Mother. Better lighting would have helped. Oh, right in there. Okay. Yeah, in the salvage yard, this clip was particularly difficult to get off. I felt like it was almost too large. The little tangs were too large. So I'm going to take the one off the factory fuel pump, put it on this one. Visually, it looks to be ever so slight difference. Let's see how easy this goes on. Oh, it went on so easy. But of course, not time to put it on yet. Before I screw it all the way down, let me test it and see if it works. If this fixes it, we can make a dyno appointment. I heard the fuel pump. Let's try it out. Sweet. All right, we got fuel pressure. I can put this on it now. We have our flex fuel sensor well. All right, now I can put this on. Some of you regular viewers may recognize where we are. We are at Exact Dyno, where Tim is going to do his tuning on our EVO Killer. Tim is someone that I've been using for tuning for a lot of things. He's actually done a very similar setup to this. This engine at one time was in our Time Attack car, had a different bottom end on it, something with a little less compression, and it made 305 horsepower. But that was with a really good exhaust. This particular engine is running the stock exhaust manifold and stock catalytic converter from an RSX. I'm not sure we'll be able to get the same 300 horsepower, but that's my goal. I want 300 horsepower. So let's review everything that we've done to this car. First off, we have our engine. This engine is not a typical CRV engine. It's got a CRV head, which means the bad VTEC. But the bottom end is actually out of an Accord. I can't remember if it's an 03 to 05 or the 06, 07, but basically it is that generation Accord that got the K series, and it should have a little bit more compression, so that should help us making our horsepower. So we got it swapped in here using Hasport's ESK4 mount kit. That's the one you wind up using when you have the Accord transmission, because remember, we've got an Accord 5-speed transmission here. I think that's a little bit better for boosted applications because it's got longer gear ratios, so it can stay in the boost longer. The one problem it does have is it does have a countershaft speed sensor, and that actually affects how the speedometer works. If you just hook it up normally, pegs the speedometer going about 4 or 5 miles an hour. All right. Some of the other modification it has, it's got this super cool K-tuned fuel rail. It's got 650cc injectors. It has the remote mount for the K-tuned 4-bar map sensor down here. We're going to need that for boost. It also has a larger K-tuned throttle body. That should help us with breathing and help us make a little bit more horsepower. I'm hoping for, again, 300 horsepower. Some of the other modifications we've done to this is we have an E85 sensor in here, so we can run E85. That's this right here. Remember, we got that out of a salvage yard off some no-name Chevy truck and wired it in. More on that wiring later on. We were actually able to repurpose some wires that were used for the high pressure, or the power steering pressure switch. We're not using power steering, hydraulic power steering. We actually have EPS. You can see the EPS motor down here. That's been wired in. One of the other modifications we have is we have a Honda K-Pro. This is our K-Pro. It's actually, the chassis of the K-Pro has actually been changed to the one of the Civic. It bolts right in. That allows us to mount it up there in the hole where it needs to be. pardon the ugly wiring right now. We're still sorting through everything. This has EPS, so we had to make a bunch of connections so the EPS worked properly. More on that as we sort through that. I drove it today. EPS was working, but it seemed a little bit aggressive, so I may actually not have something working so well, but EPS does work. We also did something kind of cool with our E85 sensor. We wired it in through this connector right here. Normally that's not how you do it, but we'll show you how that works inside the ECU as well. This is running a countershaft speed sensor, and that pulses much faster than the vehicle speed sensor. So if you hook it up just normally, you take off doing 3-4 miles an hour, and it just pegs your speedometer. So with the right base program, you can actually go in there and select that you're getting a countershaft signal, and that countershaft signal can then be reduced and output to make the speedometer work correctly. I'll talk to you more about that probably in an independent video, but that is a question I get all the time on the internet, so we need to settle that question once and for all. Tell you how to wire it at the speed sensor, tell you how to wire it at the ECU, tell you how to adjust it at the ECU, and tell you how to output the adjusted signal. So that'll be in an upcoming video here pretty quickly. Anyway, let's get on the dyno and see what we can do. We're just about ready to start with step one, and that is to develop a tune that actually works for our gas. We need to do that first, because what happens is once you hook up the E85 sensor, what it does is it makes modifications to the base tune that was done on gasoline. By the way, I don't know if you can hear that squeaking. That's my supercharger. It sounds ill. So looks like we're going to be sending it off to get rebuilt here pretty quickly. I have a second one, luckily, so I'm maybe I'll just swap them out and then send this one off to have it looked at. But I wouldn't say it's on its last legs, but it's making way more noise than I like. All right, so we've made a couple of runs and start off with some crazy knock, but that seems to have been taken care of. About 185 foot-pounds of torque at 2,500 RPM. That's a good start. Being a supercharger, it should be relatively flat. We'll see what happens with a little more tuning. Off to a good start. Let's see what she makes. Oh, blow-off valve?
Yeah, it sounded like a blow-up valve.
Yeah, it's got a valve under here that when you close the throttle, it bypasses the air back out again.
Right, that's what you should do.
Yeah.
But we're in boost, so that should just send it all in then.
Yeah.
Oh. That's what it sounded like.
Yeah, the valve is underneath here. It's right there. You can't see it. Oh no, it's underneath here. That's right. It's underneath the supercharger at the base. It connected to that. Okay, I missed it. I was out there talking to another couple of customers. We had the first full run. 192.9 foot-pounds of torque. And it was over 180 all the way up until looks like about 5,200 RPM. So that's going to make pretty good horsepower. We'll have to we revved it out to about 6,200 RPM. We'll probably rev it up to about 6,400 RPM, I'm guessing. We'll have to see how it goes from there. 6,500 RPM would be the red line on this engine.
What?
6,500 RPM would be the red line on this engine.
By then?
Yeah. We could rev it higher, but because it does have valve springs along with the cams.
Okay. Yeah, but it's still pulling them with 62.
Oh yeah, just do 68 and call it a day. Here's our last run. Made a measly 204.9 horsepower, so not particularly happy with that. I mean, obviously it's more than the 160 horsepower this engine is capable of. Hopefully that's just low cam. Anyway, we'll see. We're gonna try tightening the belt.
sounded like knock. That's why I let out.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes the superchargers themselves.
Yeah, I didn't hear the knock.
You didn't hear it?
No, I definitely heard the supercharger making some racket.
All right.
Not making that much horsepower.
No, it's not making hardly any. It's just so weird.
That is weird.
Well, it's rich sort of 11.0, but yeah.
Huh. Wonder if it's just choking out. Huh?
That means timing in it.
Okay.
Because those, of course, it pulls.
Yeah.
It's really loud.
I'm actually really disappointed with the power it's making. It's making about 205 horsepower, and I expected significantly more than that. Making good torque, but just not doing much. So irritating. This may be a failed experiment. May have to do something different. Okay, so the end result was this is the engine 9 years ago. This is the engine 9 years ago, on gas, 265. We only made 205, so there's a problem. And we're also making 3 pounds more boost, or 2 pounds more boost, so I'm assuming that the VTEC solenoid is gummed up. It's not going into VTEC, so it's backing the air up, so we're getting more boost that way. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go take it back and clean out the VTEC solenoid, make sure all that's working properly. After we do that, we're going to go ahead and put 1000cc injectors on there, because Carter reminded me that we had 1000cc injectors and running E85. I have those already. We'll put those in as well. And then we should just be able to make a few changes to the program and it should run fine. So back to the drawing board, but I'm going to take it for a rip, just see what it does at 205 horsepower. Excuse me, 205 horsepower, because it is making damn near 200 foot-pounds of torque. Should be fun. Well, this is definitely not the conclusion I wanted to be having for this particular project car, but we are where we are, and it is what it is. So, right now, 205 horsepower, huge disappointment, and I'm pretty sure that the problem is the VTEC solenoid. We noticed that it was getting about 15 pounds of boost. This setup on another car was only doing about 13 pounds of boost, so I think what's happening is our VTEC solenoid is not opening up the intake valves as much as they should, so pressure is actually backing up in the intake manifold, and that's why we're seeing the increased boost and the low horsepower. So we've got more work to do. One of the things I had hoped to do was get this thing tuned on E85, but that didn't happen. So we are going to change the VTEC solenoid. We might even take a look at the exhaust. I think I might change this. Right now we're running through a stock catalytic converter, and that may wind up being a big limiting factor as well. So what I might do is modify one of the headers, K-Series headers I have, in order to accept a 3-inch cat to go with our 3-inch exhaust that's on here, and then get it back to the dyno. Although I really wanted to take this thing for a rip, because it's not going into VTEC, it's just going to be a disappointment. So we're going to go ahead and conclude the video right here, but we will be back soon with the next part on our EVO Killer, so stay tuned. Anyway, guys, thanks a lot for joining us on another episode of VTEC Academy. We will be coming back to this very soon and getting it going. I want 300 horsepower, and then we need to take it out of the track. So next time you see it, it'll be clean, it'll be working properly, and we're going to take it for a rip. Thanks, guys. Please like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.